guys, hope you're doing well. My name is Emma and it is yet another month that's gone by, so let's chat through everything that I've been working on in the last month. Alright, we've got quite a bumpy episode today because apparently I've been a busy little bee in the last month, which I don't feel like I've done a lot, but like I've had a lot of major milestones. We've got like a couple finished pieces, I ripped back an item, we've recast it on, we've casted on some new things. I may have accidentally gone and brought some new yarn. So it just feels like I've done quite a lot. So I'm going to try keep it short and sweet today, but we'll see how well we go with that because I feel like this video has always gone forever. But let's get started with our finished pieces. All right, first finished piece. She's finally done and dusted. Oh my gosh, you know her well by now. This is the Zipper Sweater Light, which is the Pattern by Petite Knit. It's the DK weight version of the zipper sweater. This is the second one that I have made. The first one was like a gift knit. They're identical. There's just some fit differences between the two of them. So I feel like I've been knitting like this zipper sweater for like an entire year. So I'm very much glad to finally have her off the needles and all done and dusted. So very quickly, a reminder on the construction for this one. She's top down, raglan style, all over stockinette. You knit your yoke section mostly flat so that you can create the gap for your zipper. And then the rest of it's all knit in the round. So you do your Judy's Magic cast on to do your collar, knit a big chunk of ribbing, fold and seam it together. Establish your yoke, so we start doing our raglan increases whilst working German short rows on the back. As mentioned, you keep knitting flat until you reach the right depth for your zipper. That's when you join in the round, continue to knit down until you reach your right yoke depth. Then you separate your body and sleeves. Body's just knit down straight and stockinette, finish off with some 1x1 rib and tubular bind off. And then for the sleeves, you'll just collect your stitches, do some gradual decreases down the sleeve to give a bit of a tapered effect, and then finish off in the same 1x1 and bind off. You then have to knit a little bit of a facing on the inside of your zipper here. So you can see it just covers like the ugly fabric of the zipper. So you seam that down and then you install your zipper as the last step there. So for my one, as we have mentioned multiple times, I've knit mine in this Timu yarn, supposedly 100% cashmere, and it is in the colour number 37 coffee. So I ended up holding it double on this particular piece, and it came with some supporting cotton that I also held with it. I did size up on my needle, so 4.5mm needle, and I sized up by like 0.5 millimeter for like all the needles, and I ended up knitting mine to a size extra large, which was meant to give me about 23 centimeters of positive ease. I haven't done a final block on this, so I haven't measured what the final ease is, but I'd say it's probably around about that 20 centimeter mark. In terms of mods, I really only changed the cast on stitch count for my collar, so I went up one size to like the largest collar stitch count available, and then to account for that, I just adjusted my how many raglan rounds. I said one less set of raglan increases to account for the extra stitches I already had on my needles. I did space out my raglans just a wee bit as well to get that little bit of extra yoke depth, which, to be honest, did I really need to do that? Probably not. Since you last saw her, I ripped back and redid my sleeves, so now both sleeves have decreases that I am officially happy with. So redid that, and then I just had to finish off the body and do the ribbing there on that one. So since you last saw her, I spent another 23.5 hours on this particular piece, and all up to finish this project, we spent 115 hours on her. But considering how many times we did the sleeves, I'm not that mad at that. I have had this one on the needle, I think, for like 6 months. So it was kind of like a bit of a slow burn, this particular one. In terms of thoughts on the pattern and the piece, I mean, I've talked about this enough times. It's a petite knit pattern, so it's very easy to read, very easy to follow, easy. The actual piece itself, it's not a complicated knit. It is ultimately just a basic raglan. I think the most complicated thing is just installing the zipper, and it's not necessarily that it's complicated, it's just super duper fiddly. In terms of likes for this one, I do like this jumper. I really like the color of the yarn the most, and I do like the zipper sweater style. However, for my piece, I'm not super duper happy with the fit of this one. First of all, I think it's more like my yarn choices is really the problem. This yarn is like a very soft and drapey yarn, and it doesn't have any structure. So because I sized up in my collar, it's made it a little bit bigger, and the issue I was having is the whole like shoulder and everything was just like splaying out and like stretching out and down. And then the weight of the zipper, the whole piece is like coming forward, and the fit was looking really like weird and off. I fixed that just by doing a crochet seam along the like inner part of my collar, which it is starting to come undone because I just did like a temporary one to like see if that was going to fix it. And then I was like, I'll tidy it up later, but I never got around to doing it, and now it's like come undone. So I need to go back and finish that to really say that this is done and dusted. But that kind of fixed that, but nonetheless, like the back of the collar, like it doesn't support itself, so it kind of like zags down a little bit, looks a bit funny. The overall fit of it, it's fine. I think I actually preferred the fit of like my first gift knit, which was like one size down from this, a little bit better than this one, but that's like neither here or there. And then on the bottom, I don't know what's happened, but my bottom, even you can tell like hanging on the coat hanger, the bottom is sitting like higher than the top, and my ribbing is also like flaring out a little bit compared to the body. Now I haven't done a final block on this, and you can probably see the line from where I like have picked it up. So I'm hoping blocking might maybe fix that, but I don't know why that's happened. It could be because of what I've just said with the zipper, the weight of the zipper's pulling the piece forward so much, it's lifting the back up more than it should be. Could also be that I was off gauge, so the short rows that I did on the back here weren't actually that effective at adding extra fabric on, or as much fabric, yeah, because I can see how it's sitting on the coat hanger at the moment. It's not sitting like even, but yeah, so that's like a little bit weird, and I'm kind of like sitting here thinking about like whether or not I want to fix the hem of this or not. And the reason why I'm in two minds about it is because, again, of my yarn choice. This is a Temu yarn. Says that it was cashmere, but having worn this a few times now since finishing it, I don't think it is a natural fiber. I'm pretty sure it's an acrylic, because anytime I do any type of, like if I walk down to the supermarket or something like that, like I really overheat in this sweater, even though it's not like warm out, but it just doesn't have the kind of temperature regulation that like wool naturally does. You know, wool you'll feel warm and you won't necessarily like sweat really quickly with just a little bit of activity. So this is, because of this yarn, I'm leaning towards this is going to be like a house jumper where I'm really sitting around doing nothing type of jumper. Otherwise I just get hot and sweaty in it, and it's like not hot and sweaty outside type of weather, you know. So I don't think I'm going to go back and make any changes, because I would rather I think I'll just wear this out, and then eventually, like in a year's time or whenever, find some yarn that's the same color and just make another one with a better quality yarn and get the fit right with that, rather than like fiddling around with this one. This yarn is already starting to pull quite a lot, and the person who I gave the gift knit to said it pulled like crazy. So to be honest, I don't have high expectations that this is going to hold up very well for very long. So like I'll definitely wear it because I do like the style of it and the color of it and everything like that, but this yarn is not the best quality, so I wouldn't recommend this yarn. I mean, it's Temu yarn anyways. I don't think I would recommend any Temu yarn unless you just want to knit for the purpose of knitting and you don't really care about the fabric. But yeah, definitely got to find a better yarn for this. But she is otherwise done and dusted. All right, next finish piece. Again, I don't think it's going to be a surprise if you watched last month's episode, but our cumulus O-neck. Was it Cumulus Blouse O-neck by Petite Knit? She's also done and dusted. Yay! And she's got some makeup on the collar too, so just ignore that. it's never a finished piece unless it's got some makeup already on it. But this is a pattern by Petite Knit yet again. So this is the O-neck version of this top. It also comes in a V-neck. Pattern calls for you to hold 2 strands of mohair together. Also can be like an Aran weight yarn. And is knit on 4.5mm needles, and you do some of the finishing on a 4mm needle. Again, very basic construction, very similar actually to the zipper sweater, where it's top down raglan all over stockinette. You cast on, you actually start this one by knitting flat for a bit. So you got to think of it like, I think I referred to it last time, it's like knitting a cardigan. So you start establishing your raglans, but you're just continuing to like knit flat to get a little bit more of a, I guess, edge bit here, and then you start to do some increases and you bring your neckline together down here. Once you've brought it together in the round, you just continue to knit down, doing your raglan increases until you reach your right yoke depth. Separate your body sleeves, knit down your body, and then you finish off with a I-cord bind off. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it in this particular yarn, but you do that, and then you'll collect your sleeve stitches, do some gradual decreases as you knit down your sleeve, also do your I-cord bind off, and then you pick up stitches around your collar and put a I-cord trim on there as well. So for my one, I've used Drops brushed alpaca silk, and that is 77% alpaca, 23% silk, and I have mine in the color number 32 moss. I use the same needle size as recommended in the pattern, and at first I did think I was spot on for gauge, so I knit this to a size medium, or I cast on for a medium, but as I knit down I realized I wasn't actually on gauge like I thought I was, so I ended up just continuing to increase my stitch count up until like the size large, and I did space out my raglans just a little bit towards the end there as well to make sure I had the right amount of yoke depth, which again, in hindsight, I don't think I need to do that, because once you add the body on, like it stretches out a little bit and it's going to look a little bit better. So it's a hard one to like grasp when you don't have much fabric on, whether or not that yoke is at the right depth or not. But yeah, I didn't make any modifications to my piece, and last time you saw her, she would have been what did I do? I think I just bound off my sleeves. I had knit all my sleeves, but I hadn't bound off because I wanted to make sure like the length was going to be right, because I keep finding that I finish my sleeves, I think they're good like length, and then they kind of like cinch up a little bit and they're not so long. So this one I like left them like hanging out for a bit before I did the bind off, and they are a good length, and then I just continued to work the body and did the bind off on the body there as well. So I worked on her for another 14 hours to get her finished, and this all up took me 58 hours to finish. So that can't be right. 58 hours. No, it is right. 58 hours. Wow, that was so quick. There we are. She took me 58 hours to knit this whole entire piece. But I did knit it over the course of, I think it was like 10 weeks to finish this one. Again, I wasn't like super rushing this, but slightly larger needles means you can get through it a little bit quicker. Thoughts on the pattern, same as kind of my thoughts on the sort of pattern. Like petite knit patterns are very well written, clear instructions, easy to follow. Absolutely no issues with that. In fact, I didn't even really need to look at the pattern for this one. It was more so just like once you had established like your yoke section, you pretty much were good to just keep going until you reach the stitch count. Like you didn't really need to look at it. Knitting this, it was okay. This particular piece, I think I might have mentioned when I first cast this on, it wasn't necessarily something that I was like, oh, I really want to make this. It was just like I had this yarn and I kind of was looking for something to use this yarn up on. And so I decided to purchase and make this particular pattern. So it wasn't like a knit that I was like super duper eager to do for any particular reason, but nonetheless, it was an enjoyable knit. It's a very easy knit, so can't really complain too much. The yarn is a little bit of a pain in the ass to work with. I will say that though, it can be very hard to see your stitches because of the fluff factor of this one. It's like the fuzzy alpaca fluff. So it can be very easy to like miss a stitch or like accidentally snag the fluff and think you've got the core of the stitch, but you might easily like miss it. So you do need to pay a little bit more attention, but you kind of, once you get going with this and you kind of get used to working with it, and it becomes a lot more like, it's fine. It's not that big a deal. Likes and dislikes on this. I actually really like this finished piece. I wore it yesterday for the first time and it was super duper comfortable to wear. This is like really nice soft fabric. It's really nice against the skin. Highly recommend this yarn if you're looking to substitute for like mohair or something like that. It works really well in this particular pattern. Just one strand of alpaca silk in replacement of 2 strands of mohair. Worked out perfectly fine. It's very lightweight, comfortable. It's like warm to the touch and all that, but it's not like a overly warm piece. So it's a good like transitional kind of item, I guess, to make. So yeah, I liked it. It's really good. Like I say, it's not something I was like super eager to make or have in my collection, but I think it's going to fit into my wardrobe very like well, and I'm definitely going to get wear out of it. So I'm happy with it, but I'm not like ecstatic about it, I guess. Only things I think I would have liked a little bit different. I would have liked this neckline to be a little bit deeper. But that could be my fault because it wasn't like a medium cast on. And if I had done maybe a large from the get-go, I might not have thought that. You could also, because you do size down to a 4mm needle for the I-cord edge here, which in hindsight, you could probably just use the same as the body needle because for these bind-offs, you use the body size needle. And so I don't know why you use a smaller needle for the neckline. But yeah, that could have been maybe a little bit more like open. I think I might have liked it a little bit more, but I do find that the piece does like slip up and slide back. So that's why I've got makeup all over this neckline because it ends up sitting like just down here, kind of cinches back. And I find this with all of my knits. I don't think it's like the knits fault. I just think it's like how it sits on my body that the piece tends to slide backwards a little bit. Apart from my zipper because the zipper weighs it down. But yeah, I think that's all I would do, and any changes for next time, I don't think, like I said, needed the extra yoke depth. I think that's the only change I would do to this one. So that is my Cumulus blouse O-neck. I can never remember that name, it's so freaking long. But yeah, happy this one's done as well. Alrighty, now on to our whips. So first up, this is my Sunshine Tee by Andrea Gorn. So this calls for light fingering, or the recommended yarn is the Knitting for Olive range, which is what I'm using here as well. This one's meant to be knit on 3.25mm needles. It also calls for like the next sizes down, so a 2.75 and a 2.25 for like some of the finishing details. For this one, it's a top-down knit yet again. We've got like that, again, I still don't know the name of the sleeve type, but like your set-in sleeve situation, I think is what it's called, but I'm not too sure. And the whole piece is in stockinette stitch. The yoke sections all knit flat in kind of sections, and then you bring it together and knit it in the round. So you start by casting on for your little back piece. Whoopsies. Cast on for your back piece. You do German short rows to create that like trapezoid shape, which also I believe it's called a European shoulder construction. Maybe that's just the sleeve type. It's European shoulder construction. I don't know. But you get that kind of sloped shoulder. So most patterns just do increases. This one does German short rows to get that kind of slope on the shoulder. But then you just knit down. You do some increases towards the bottom. Yeah, increases. Yeah, towards the bottom for the underarm shaping. You then pick up your little shoulder pieces. You knit your little front shoulder, doing shaping for your neckline. Do the same for the other side. Connect the two. And then you do the same for the front as you did for the back. So you just knit down and then do some shaping for the underarms. Once you've reached that right yoke depth, you join the piece in the round. You just knit the body down until you reach the length that you are happy with. This one does have a folded stockinette hem, so it instructs you to do some like round decreases. It's optional if you want to do it or not, before sizing down in your needles and doing some stockinette and then folding and seaming that to create the hem. You then pick up your sleeve stitches. There's some German short rows to like shape the shoulder bit. Again, you just knit down until you're happy with the length and do the same finishing as you did on the body on the sleeves. And then you'd pick up for your neckline and you do this one from the wrong side, knit it, fold it, and seam it down on the outer edge here so that you get the, I think it's the bind off edge is the exposed seam. I didn't quite understand that at first, but now that I'm obviously up to the collar section, I kind of get that a little bit more. So as mentioned, I am using the recommended yarn for this pattern. So this is knitting for olive cotton merino that I've got here. So it's 70% cotton, 30% wool blend. This is in the color mole, which is nice kind of brown color. This is going to be a theming color too. I did end up sizing down on my needles. So I'm doing a 3mm needle on this, and that's just because I wanted the fabric to be a little bit more dense than what 3.25s was giving me, which does mean I am now knitting this pretty well off gauge. So I've started my construction of this piece to a size F. And then I think I've sized down to an E for the body, or somewhere between an E and F. I can't remember what my stitch count was now on this particular one. But I was aiming for like 10 to 15 centimeters of ease. However, I'm having some doubts with this. So I think I mentioned last time I had just a little bit of extra, I was like up to like here or something. So I just continued to knit down until I used up that ball of yarn. And now I've picked up for the collar. I'm about probably 2/3 of the way through the collar knitting. It looks like it's inside out at the moment because, like I said, you pick up from, you're not about to really see because it's on a small circular. But yeah, you pick up and you knit from this side. And then when it's long enough, you'll fold it this way and then seam it down. I didn't quite get that. Like I say, when I was like looking at the pattern, I thought that the pickup edge, so you can see on the back here, you see how you like pick up? I thought that this pickup edge here was the exposed seam that you would see. So I thought you would knit it up this way and then fold and seam on the inside, but you actually fold and seam on the outside. Does that make sense? I don't know. Anyways, I was trying really hard to keep my like stitches all looking super duper neat and even because I thought that was going to be seen, but turns out like that seam is not going to be seen. So that was seen with. You live and you learn. But anyways, yeah, as I mentioned last time, I had some concerns that my armhole is way too big. So I'm doing my collar first so that I can seam and sit it because that's going to cinch it up and in a little bit. I don't think it's going to really make any dramatic difference to this armhole pulling up in any way, but we'll see. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to rip this back and like redo the increase section. So I've got some pins in here. So where these pins are on this side, you can see here, that's where the increases I think start. So I'm going to have to rip back to up here, possibly a little bit above, and then redo all of that knitting. That's like hours and hours of knitting. It's basically like half of my yoke at this point. So yeah, I don't know. I need to give that some thought. And I think because I think I'm heading that direction, I just haven't really been excited to work on this particular piece. So since you last saw her, I've only spent 6 hours working on this piece. And that's just been on doing this collar, which by the way, picking up the stitches, I had to do it like multiple times. I don't think they give you a stitch count for this. They just tell you to pick up at a certain rate. But yeah, I don't even think I was doing that correctly. I don't know. But anyways, we've spent 43 hours on her so far. I do need to get this one done though because I know I'm going to run out of yarn. And this is why I've cast it on my next project because I'm also concerned that I'm going to run out of yarn. So next up we have, I don't know if you're going to see much what this is. This is the start of my Camisole number 4 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Oops, I'm almost losing my stitches here. So this is a fingering weight knit. It's meant to be knit on 3.5mm needles. It's again top-down construction and broken rib. It is a singlet, so no shoulder construction there. So you start by knitting the yoke section flat. So you knit the triangles. That is what I've got here. So you've got the little ones are the back triangles, and then the front ones, this bigger one here is the front triangle, and I'm about like, I don't know, a quarter way through my next front triangle at the moment. So you knit these triangles flat, you bring the 2 front ones together, and then you continue to knit down. You still do some increases from that center triangle point on the front, and then you bring the piece together in the round. So you cast on some underarm stitches, you collect your back piece, you do some cast ons in between your two back triangles and bring that one around. Once you're in the round, you just continue to knit down in the broken rib pattern until you're happy with the length and then bind off. For this one, you start with provisional cast ons and then you pick up your stitches and you'll knit your straps, which according to the pattern are meant to be I-cord straps. So I am making some modifications to mine. As you may know, this is the second edition that I'm making. I actually got this one sitting right here. I don't know why I didn't hold that up while I was talking about the construction, but I don't have a coat hanger for it. So this is what the finished piece is going to end up looking like. So my first one here, I knit using, again, a Temu yarn. So, you know, early on in my knitting journey, we brought a lot of Temu yarn. I don't actually wear that piece because I didn't fully understand like gauges and things like that back then as well. And so I ended up holding 3 strands together in order to get a dense enough fabric so it wasn't like see-through. And the end result was just that this piece is super duper heavy. It's very heavy, yet the wind just, or any breeze just goes straight through it. So it kind of feels like you're not wearing anything, but at the same time, you've got this like heavy weight of a top on you. So it's not the most comfortable thing ever. And since I was buying knitting for olive yarn, I was like, I'm just going to buy some of the pure silk and like remake this camisole in the called for yarn because I can. So yeah, look, I'm going to be real. I don't know how much, if this is a pattern that I really want to make again, but here we are. Anyways, so for mine, I am using the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. So I've got mine in the color Coal, which is just black. I have sized down in my needles to a 3.25 millimeter needle because I did have a gauge swatch, which was just one of the back triangles. I did as my like gauge swatch, and I was just like, it's very gapey, and I don't know if I love it. This is still quite gapey, like you can see through it, but it doesn't look like as bad as it did before. I feel like this is like an acceptable level of see-throughness, and when you hold it against the skin, like you really can't see like through it at all. So yeah, I went with 3.25s. I'm currently following the stitch count for a large, but my stitch count is going to be off a little bit because I did also end up changing the center cable here. I should really put some clips on my cables because these are sliding off. So you can see this like front column down here. As per pattern, that should be a broken rib column, but I've switched mine out to a knit column because one of the most, like as you do your increases from there, it really like stretches out the broken rib and that makes it like more see-through. So you can see, am I holding it the right way? This way. So you can see on this one, it's got the broken rib column that runs down the middle. And I hold it up against the wall. You can see how see-through that like section is compared to the rest of the knitting on the side. And that's just because the increases are done either side of those knit stitches. So it just like pulls them out a little bit more. So instead of doing the broken rib, I've opted for knit stitches, and it keeps it a little bit more dense and consistent all the way through, yeah, in terms of see-throughness. But because I've switched that out, it means when you're doing your ribs that come out, you have to do either one more or one less set to make sure that you're finishing on like an alternating. So instead of finishing on a knit round, I need to finish on a broken rib round because I've kept the outside to a broken rib. I haven't alternated the order that they went in. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if it does. The other changes that I'm doing to mine as well is I've casted on, so I used Judy's Magic cast on for my provisional cast on, and I've done 6 stitches for the straps there, and I intend to knit a flat strap and just keeping it to that pattern. So you'll have, I don't know if you can even see that, so you'll have like the knit stitches going up the side and you'll have broken rib either side of that, so 6 stitches across, which actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I might have made a mistake with that because I need edge stitches as well, which I haven't accounted for. Have I made a mistake? I think I made a mistake. Oh no. Damn it. Damn it. What am I gonna do? Oh no. Okay, I need to process that and decide what I'm gonna do with that now, because I really don't want to start those triangles again for the cast on. So I wonder if I can make that work. Oh God, I'm so mad at myself now. I'm so mad at myself. Anyways, I spent 10 hours on those triangles so far. So yeah, back triangles, one front one, and then started on the second front one. So yeah, that's where we're on that project. What a downer. All right, anyways, moving on from that to another project it's a little bit of a downer still, this one too, because this is the one that I ripped back, and this is where we're now up to. So this is my Salty Days sweater. It is patterned by Kutova Kika. This one's meant to be knit with a lace and a DK held together on 5mm needles, 3mm for all of your finishings. It's a top-down knit, drop shoulder construction, so same as what I kind of mentioned for the Sunshine team, where you've got that sloped kind of shoulder, but this one's done with the increases, and it's an all over like texture and some lace pattern. The texture is mostly just ribbing. This one here is a 1x2 rib that you're doing. So because it is a drop shoulder construction, you are knitting your yoke section flat. So you start with what this is the back piece, you cast on, do all your increases, knit down. You do one set of charts, which is like the diamond chart. You then pick up for your shoulders, you knit them, doing some shaping around the front, bring those two pieces together, knit the front down, do that first chart again, and that's when you will then separate body and sleeves after that diamond chart's done. You then move on to, there's like a cable and garter stitch chart, and then another diamond chart. Now the diamond chart in the round is the one that everyone has like a little issue with the beginning of round stage. Once you've done that, you continue to knit down in the 1x2 rib until you're happy with the length, and then you switch to 1x1 twisted rib for your finishing, and then bind off however you like. You then pick up for your sleeve stitches, and you just knit a lot of ribbing down in the 1x2 rib. There are some decreases that are worked into that as well. I don't quite understand the decreases when I read the pattern at first glance, but like once I get to doing it, I'm sure they're going to make sense, but right now they seem very confusing. You then move into, you've got that diamond motif again on the cuff before you move into your 1x1 ribbing. And then you pick up for your collar, and you do that in the 1x1 twisted rib as well, and that's a folded over collar. So for my piece, we're using Bendigo Willow Mills Cotton 8 ply, so it's 100% cotton, and this is the colour 887 Latte. I am making quite a lot of adjustments for size and gauge. So the pattern does say lace plus DK, but then it says equal DK, which is why I brought the DK weight cotton, but I really should have brought the 10 ply cotton. It would have worked better for the pattern being closer to gauge. Because it is a cotton as well, like it doesn't look that great when it's gaping, and when you block it, it's not going to bloom in the same way that a wool will bloom. So I have sized down on my needles to get like a nice crisp stitch. So I'm using the recommended needle for the yarn, which is a 4mm needle. I did initially, if you remember last month, I had done basically my entire yoke. I was up to the point of doing the diamond chart on the front, and that was the first time that I had put it on the coat hanger, and I realized that, oh, my like yoke depth does not look right. It was looking far too shallow, and so after that, I literally blocked it. I remeasured my gauge, and as always, I feel this is quite typical as well. Once you're already like knitting the piece, like you realize your gauge is not what your gauge swatch indicated it was going to be. So I was way off, way off. My row gauge was way off, and the piece overall was coming out quite large, like width-wise as well. So I was like, I don't know, this might be coming out like way too big, way too short. So I decided to rip that back, and reassessing all the stitch counts, I've decided to stick to the pattern following the extra large size, but I still need to make additions for row gauge. So I'll have to knit extra rows like on this back panel before I start the charts, just after the increases are done. So just in the flat section, I'll have to do extra for the shoulder to ensure that neckline comes down low enough, and then extra once the front piece is connected together, I'll do some extra rows there as well before starting that diamond chart. So hopefully that depth then comes out better than it did last time. So that's what I'm doing. So I actually cast it on as per the extra large, and then I realized I was looking at my like cast on edge here, and it was just very, very small, and I was like, I don't think this is gonna like fit well. So I ended up ripping back what I had done. I think I'd worked on for like 2 hours, but I had done like a good decent chunk of this back piece. So I ripped it back again and I recast it on, and so I went back to the stitch count that I cast it on for my like heavily modified size, which is 35 stitches is what I've cast it on here. So I've got a few extra stitches. I've got a couple extra columns in here. So what I'll have to do is make some adjustments as we continue to knit down the yoke. So in the eyelet rounds, some sizes you do have to do decreases in anyway, so I'm just going to follow the instructions and do the decreases in those same spots to decrease down my stitch count. So I need to do it in both the eyelet rounds. I'll need to do the decreases, and then I'll probably also have to reduce my cast on stitches for the underarms just by like 2 stitches to balance everything out, so that by the time we get to the body, we'll be back to the stitch count for an extra large. So those charts that had worked in the round, I won't need to do any thinking or adjustments for. I've checked the flat chart and I can make it work no problemo with my slightly adjusted stitch count. I can't remember what I decided on now, whether I was going to follow a different size chart or I was just going to have a few extra stitches on like either end, because you do a little bit of plain stitching on like either end, so it's like a couple stitches extra. It doesn't really like matter. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing for mine. Otherwise I'm trying to like basically stick to the size extra large for this one now. So I spent another 7 hours on this little back panel since you last saw it, and a total of 24 hours has gone towards this project. So this is all we have for 24 hours, which is why it's a bit of a downer. But yeah, hopefully the fit comes out a lot better on this one. So we'll have to wait and see, but yeah, it is what it is. I'm knitting this one off gauge, so these fit issues are my fault. All right, last thing I'm going to talk about. Hang in there, guys. We're almost done. Next up, we have a couple, I don't know if I'm going to call this a whip or these are just like gauge swatches at this point. I'm not sure. But what we have here is 2 gauge swatches in a like half fisherman's rib situation on different needle sizes. I did do a gauge swatch. I actually gauge swatched this yarn with like several different patterns in mind, but because I had such a tiny swatch, I was like, I'm just going to cast on and see what it looks like. And yeah, anyways, I'm a bit off gauge for one of them. So these are the start of a Lanark sweater. This is a pattern by Rebecca Clow, also known as the Creya Bear. This sweater calls for a DK weight knit, and it is knit on 3.5mm needles for the body, and you do your finishings in a 2.75mm needle. Top down knit, drop shoulder construction, and it's in the all over half fisherman's rib. This is done like brioche style, so it's really like half brioche rib. Is that what you would call it? I don't know. She does call out that you can do that fisherman's rib in 2 different ways, doing like the knit one below or doing like the brioche stitch, but the pattern is written for the brioche stitch, and that's what I've done as well. I find it really easy to do. I quite enjoy a brioche stitch because it is a drop shoulder. The yoke section is knit flat, so it's quite similar in a way to the zipper sweater, but then because it's drop shoulder, it's a little bit different. So you do still cast on with Judy's Magic Cast On. You do the like knit your collar, fold it over, seam it together. This one you do a little bit of a weird kind of like, you put some stitches on hold on like either end of the collar, and you knit from like the center. So think like back of neck. You cast on some extra stitches for like the shoulder, so that you create the like back panel basically. So some German short rows on the back panel. You then just knit that down until you get to the right yoke depth. Depending what size you're knitting, there is some like shaping for the armholes. You then pick up for your shoulder. That's when you kind of like, you pick up the your stitches that you've got on hold from your collar, and then you pick up along like shoulder line. I don't quite understand how this construction quite works. You do some German short row shaping here as well on the front. Again, like I've just read it once and I don't quite understand what impact that's having at this particular point in time. But you do some shaping, around the front neckline as well, and then you continue to knit down your yoke, mirror whatever you did on the back on the front. Once you reach the right yoke depth, that's when you bring the entire piece in the round. So that's for your front. You'll have a gap in the middle for your zipper, so you've got to bring your two front panels together, cast on your extra stitches for your underarms, and connect the back piece together. Just continue to knit down in the half fisherman's rib until you're happy with the length. Switch to your smaller needles. You do a 1x1 rib for your finishing and bind off however you like. Pick up your sleeve stitch, knit in the round in your half fisherman's rib. There are some decreases that are worked down the sleeve. You finish with your 1x1 ribbing again for your cuff. And then again, similar to the original zipper sweater with the petite knit one, you have some stitches that are on hold on that collar, and you'll pick those up and you knit that like inner facing to like hide the ugly bit of the zipper on the inside, and then you install your zipper into there and you'll be done. So the yarn that I have is what I picked up from Bendigo Woolen Mills recently. So I did a wee day trip out there, and I just had the intent to look at like a couple different yarns, and I was like, I'm just going to buy a single wool so I can come home and do some gauge swatches, because I wasn't 100% sure for some of them like what pattern I wanted to make. I just heard that the yarn's nice, but then I also wanted to touch it in person, and I also wanted to see the colors in person, because it's really hard picking the colors online. I feel like they look way different online than in real life sometimes. And then also you look at people's like project photos, and depending on the lighting that they've taken their photo in, it's hard to tell how true to real life the color of the finished piece is to the yarn. You know what I mean? Anyways, went up to Bendigo Woolen Mills. I went to that same place I went to last time and got a chicken bagel this time. Sat and ate it in the park. All these beautiful like flowers everywhere. It was gorgeous. No regrets going there and doing that. And then I went over to the mill and I picked up this yarn. So this is I think it's pronounced Woolamy. I'm not 100% sure. It's an 8-ply yarn, and this is 100% single origin Corriedale wool. The color that I have here is 2959 Ironbark, and it's like, it is a brown. It's a brown. It looks kind of like a greigey brown. Now I did knit up several gauge swatches already, because I was sampling different like patterns and like stitch types and textures and things like that. So I did have small gauges in this fisherman's rib, but because they were quite small, I just decided to like cast them on and start knitting the collar and using that as the gauge swatch. So the two that I have here, by the way, I don't think I mentioned that. This one here that's not on the needles and is continuously unraveling every single time I pick it up and put it down. This one is knit on a 4mm needle, so that's the suggested needle for the yarn, and that's how we're kind of coming out. This one has been blocked. It is well off gauge. So I then sized up in my needles one more time. So this is a 4.5mm needle. This one's much closer to meeting gauge, hasn't been blocked yet, and that's what that one's kind of looking like. So, like, can I comparison them? I don't know. They don't look too different, but like you can definitely tell that the 4mm on the bottom here just looks a bit like tighter and nicer. I feel like this one in the top is a little bit too gapey. Like when I block it, I know this blooms really nice when you block it. So I might just have to block it and just see how that changes. But at the moment, I'm leaning more towards the 4mm, but then I'm going to have to knit my pattern off gauge. So that's all I've done. So depending what needle size I pick, I'm either going to knit this pattern in the size 4 or the size 5. And yeah, all I've done on it is these. This is why I'm like, is this a project or is this a gauge swatch? I don't know. Now they should just be gauge swatches because I have too many other projects that I need to finish, and we're also going into the summer months. So it's like, what's the point? I'm not going to be able to wear it anyways. But this yarn is so nice. I can't stop working with it. It's a combination of like, I do enjoy brioche, but also this yarn is like so nice and soft, and like it's quite squishy. Like I said, when you block it, it plumps up like real nice. It's got like a real nice kind of plumpness to it. I don't know how to describe this yarn. But in terms of like the Bendigo Woolen Mills range, the merino is definitely a lot, or that's like the softest of the yarns, right? This is definitely like kind of similar softness, but it feels more like a wool, if that makes any sense at all. It's not scratchy or anything like that, no prickles or anything like that. It's lovely, and I really like it. I'm not a super fan of the color range though. Even this color, like I did like the few gauge swatches and I was like, I don't really love this color with some of these patterns, but I think it works well with this brioche stitch. So I kind of felt like I was almost forcing myself to find something to work with this yarn because I really want to use this yarn. But the color has grown on me a little bit since like I've been working with it, mainly, I don't know, maybe because it's just I love this yarn. I'm really tempted to buy more, but I don't like any of the other colors that are in the range. They just don't speak to me. But this yarn is so nice to work with, and I am considering just picking up some of the like plain, like I think it's undyed, or like there's like a white color, and maybe just knitting up something and like dyeing it later. I haven't done that before. I have no experience with it. I don't know how the yarn will take to dye. But it's that nice. It's that nice. I want to buy more, but I wish the colors were a bit different. Not that they're like bad colors by any means. It's just not to my taste and my color palette. But yeah, I'm loving this squidgy yarn here. Whilst I was at the mill, I also picked up one other yarn, which is, so this one is the, what are you actually called? Bendigo Woolen Mills Rustic Tweed 10 ply. For this one, so slightly thicker. This color is 956 driftwood, and it's just like a 100% wool, and it's got the like little speckly bits in it. Try to find. It's hard to see when it's in the ball, but you can kind of see there's like lighter and darker little speckles in it. It's not super obvious. Even when you like knit it up, it's not super obvious because, yeah, as you can see, this ball looks a bit funky because I did make a gauge swatch. I then unraveled my gauge swatch, washed my yarn, and it's ready to go again. So for this one, the gauge swatch that I knit up, and I basically was just wanting to check the colors for this one because it does come in. I was tossing up between like the linen color and this color, and then the linen one's just like too white. Like this is actually a very nice color. Kind of looks cool tone, but sometimes it looks warm tone. Like I'm not really sure what the finished piece is going to end up looking like. But what I plan to make with this is going to be the Dagmar zipper jacket by Petite Knit. Like another zipper jumper, another Petite Knit pattern too. But yeah, I keep seeing it and I'm just like so stuck on like the cables, and I was like, I want to make this so badly. I'm not the biggest fan of like thick wools, but like it's not that bad. And to be honest, this one, when you like wash it, it looks very similar thickness to this one. So like this, you could probably get away with like multiple patterns because of how much it like plumps up. It does come in a thicker size as well, but I'm pretty sure it's like 12 ply, like it's quite thick. But yeah, so pick this up. I have since ordered, like I only picked up single balls when I went to the mills, and I've since like ordered more online. So I did 2 separate orders because I was doing like different gauge swatches at different times. So all of this yarn's arrived. I haven't got the rustic tweed yet. It's actually at the post shop. I just need to go pick it up. But that is everything, guys. Holy moly, if you made it like through this massive video, give yourself like a thumbs up because you deserve it. As you know, all of these will eventually turn into a project vlog, so if you want to see them do those YouTube things, and if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. And yeah, I'm going to wrap it up and just say see you guys in the next one. Bye. It is monthly knitting updates. Ooh, I forgot my own title. Can you hear those cars? I hope you can't hear the music in the background. Someone's getting lit today.